So last Thursday was the seniors' last official day at our school. I only had one class. It was first thing in the morning. And when I got there, or at least when the bell rang, I only had 3 students out of the 17 that I should have had. Thankfully, within 15 minutes, there was stuff that we still had to do. They had presentations that they had to make. And the very ones that had the presentations weren't there to make those presentations. But within 15 minutes, thankfully, most of my students showed up. And not only did they show up, but there were students in there that I had never even seen before. I had no idea who they were. They were just visiting for whatever reason. They didn't want to go to their class, so they came to mine. Students did their presentations. It didn't take too long. They did their presentations. We had about another hour left, so we went outside and we decided that we were going to play some kickball. And by we, I mean we. I got to be included in that. I got to play kickball probably for the first time in 20 years. It was great, except for when it wasn't. I learned 2 major life lessons that day. First one, age is only a number, is a lie. Second one is similar. If you're only as old as you feel, then I am ancient. Found that out. I'm feeling pretty old. Somehow, in the midst of all that, I managed to injure pretty much the entire left side of my body. But my team won. Handedly won. So it was great. I had a great time while it lasted. Now, Solomon seems to have understood what I seem to forget every time I get a chance to play some type of sport. And that is that there comes a time when you can't do what you used to do, even if you want to do it. And so he continues actually to advise young people on their entire lives. And he tells them basically that they need to enjoy this time that while they can, but they also need to remember that they were made for more. And that would really include all of us. The ESV, other translations, they tend to put this into 2 pericopes, the 2 sections of Scripture. If you look at it, you'll see it says, remember your Creator in your youth, and then secondly, fear God and keep His commandments. I think that this is actually one major message, one main message that he is trying to get at with 2 pertinent points there. The first, mainly, though, is that as young people, you need to use your vigor, you need to use your vitality to glorify God and enjoy Him forever, just exactly what Westminster said. And he gives us 2 reasons then. These are the 2 main points that he is actually bringing this to young people. He is singling out young people. Firstly, giving God your leftovers is wasteful. And then secondly, giving the world your best is exhausting. Those are the 2 main points that we're looking at this morning. Giving God your leftovers is wasteful. It is wasting your life. And giving the world your best is exhausting you beyond measure. So, let's go ahead and take a look, because I remember when I was in seminary, I read some type of commentary. I don't remember which one it was, but I read some type of commentary. I basically I don't know if they took this full, or if they were took this in fully to heart, or if they were just kind of being a little bit facetious here. But one of them basically said that Solomon, when he was young, must have written Song of Solomon. It's full of life, full of fun. It's about being newlywed and so forth. And then when he wrote Proverbs, after he had lived his entire life and he had seen all that he had seen, he had wisdom, and so he gives wisdom like an ancient father would give wisdom passed down to his sons and grandchildren and such. And then when Solomon was middle-aged, when he was a little curmudgeon going through a midlife crisis, he wrote Ecclesiastes. And if we're not careful while we're reading that, we can kind of take that as well. We can kind of see that in the text, even though that's really not the case at all. We've been studying this book for the last 4 months. This is the 16th sermon and the last one in this book. And what we have found is that Solomon has sought to live a life under the sun, as if his wisdom only comes from this world and not from God. He lived as though, for a time of his life, he seems to have lived part of his life then as if God had not existed. And did that so that we then, of course, would not need to do that. That we could learn from him. There are plenty of us who have children, and we made our mistakes growing up, and we have made our mistakes as young adults and middle-aged adults and such, and then we then seek to pass on that knowledge to our children for the very purpose that they don't make those same mistakes. Same concept with Solomon, that he lived life under the sun, apart from God, making those mistakes, seeing what life was like, that it was ultimately vain, that it was worthless, that it was like a vapor, that it was nothing there to live life as if there is no God. So that way, we don't make those same mistakes. By the time we get to this, as he has processed all of this, and he has been writing this, and he has been preaching this to his congregation, to his audience, he basically comes to the conclusion, do not waste your life. You were made for more than you know, and therefore to give God your leftovers is wasteful. It is a waste of life. That's the theme of the first 8 verses here in Ecclesiastes 12. And we're not going to read all of them. Will already read them. We're not going to read all of them. We're going to allude to them. I'm going to go back and review them basically. But let's just take a look at verse 1. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come, and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. And so for the next few verses, next 7 verses, we see there that Solomon just is giving metaphor after metaphor after metaphor of what it is like to become old. What these evil days are that are coming. And so he writes about how the sun and the moon and the stars are darkening. And he's referring to the idea that we are losing, as you grow older, you lose the ability to see well. He kind of makes that same point in verse 3 when he talks about the looking out the window dimly, that it seems like there is this cloud that is coming over the eyes that you don't see as well. The world is not as beautiful as it once was because you cannot see the beauty in the world any longer. That glimmer in the eye is dimming. The eyes don't sparkle like they used to. The hands tremble. The back, which should be the strongest part, right? The back is bent over and weak. The teeth are so brittle, they're no longer grinding food like they used to. They're so brittle or gone that chewing food is a chore. The ears close like a door. They keep the sound out. And yet, it takes nothing to wake one up in the morning. The song of a bird can wake someone up in older age before the sun has even come up, and they are up for the rest of the night, just laying there, wanting to get back to sleep, but they can't. The hair turns white like almond blossoms. Height becomes a very scary thing. Even taking one step on a step stool can wreak fear into the hearts of those who are aged. They're not as steady as they once were. The lightest weight, like a grasshopper, can feel heavy. Desires are gone. The idea is that I'm just waiting here for death. I don't really want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. I really don't necessarily want to see anybody. I just want to just be here. Until I die. That's what it's like as one grows older, just waiting for death, the silver cord to be cut, a golden bowl to be broken, a pitcher shattered, a cistern, kind of like a well, without its wheel to bring water up for refreshing. That's what it's like. All these different metaphors of death. We would have some different ones today that we would understand probably a little bit more, like a bucket to be kicked, a farm that is bought, the dust that is bitten. the daisies that are being pushed up. And reading all of these metaphors about death and what life is like as you grow older, all these idioms, reading them all in a row can actually make us lose track of what Solomon was actually saying, because he's still talking to the young people. And he again is saying, do not waste your life. Live your life unto the glory of God. Don't give God your leftovers. That's wasteful. It's not that you can't glorify God when you are in old age. Of course you can glorify God. Absolutely can. People do it all the time. But Solomon's point is that you don't have the physical abilities that now you have in young age. So don't wait until you're getting older in order to simply live your life to the glory of God. Think about all the opposites of what Solomon has just gone over. You actually can still look at Times New Roman 12 font, and you can actually read it without bifocals. Congratulations, good job. You don't need to zoom in on things like you do when you get to my age and get older than that. You can hold a glass that is filled to the brim and not worry about spilling it. You roll your eyes every time your parents tell you to lift with your knees and not with your back, because you still have a strong back. You can actually go to concerts and not wear earplugs, though you should. You can jump down stairs 2, 3, 4 at a time. Don't even think about it. Trip over something? No problem. You've heard that joke, right? You know that you're old when you fall, and rather than laughing, people gasp, right? You fall, people don't gasp when you're young. They laugh. You come inside after getting groceries, you got 20 bags in your hand, taking them all at once because you're strong. You don't have to worry about it. Nothing's too heavy for you. You've got dreams, passions, desires, to live a life of meaning and purpose. Your whole life is ahead of you. No farms to be seen, no buckets to be kicked. All is well. So here's the question. What are you going to do with the strongest moment in life that you will ever have? Have you ever thought about how you're going to use your life right this moment, at this time, for God's kingdom? Are you remembering also your Creator in the days of your youth before the evil days come and the years draw near to which you will say, I have no pleasure in them? That's my question. Or are you waiting until the time is perfect, as we talked about last week? I'm not saying that you have to give up your jobs and move to a foreign land, become a missionary. That's not what I'm saying, though maybe that's exactly what God is calling you to, and you know that. And you've just been hesitating. I'm not saying that you have to become a preacher. I'm not saying you have to become an evangelist, though God may be calling you to do that as well. And you should do it then. What I'm asking is, are you forgetting about your Creator? Are you forgetting about His kingdom? Because if you are, you're being foolish. Putting off until retirement or until a later day even, what you can actually do today is wasting the very years that God has blessed you with, that you can make the most impact for His kingdom. Malachi, if you go to the book of Malachi, first chapter, first thing that he does, he gets on to the priests because they are giving sacrifices to God of that which is blind or sick or lame. And he asks them what in the world they're thinking about. Why would you do that? Why would you give God what is left over and keep what is good unto yourself? Why are you keeping the best and giving Him what you don't want? Whether they intended to do that or not, they just simply maybe not have been thinking about it, but the results are the same. You're giving God the leftovers. God doesn't want what is left. God requires, He demands what is first. And you have the opportunity to find pleasure in your days now before the days of evil come, before old age comes and takes that pleasure from you. And old age does tend to kind of creep up on you. I mean, one day you're running around without a care in the world. The next day, you're limping for 3 days straight because you played kickball. So the young people here, what Solomon says, do not waste your youth. Plan to give God what is best, not what is left. Because what Solomon then says is vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. In other words, it is the vapor of vapors. Your time and your abilities will be gone before you know it. But it's not just simply about not giving God your leftovers. It is also about giving the world your best. Because if you're giving the world your best, then you are exhausting yourselves. He's not coming again from this middle-aged malcontent, right? He's exploring the world. He's explored the world for all that it has to offer, and he has become a realist about what this world is. So let's look at verses 9 through 12 here. Besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. So here's Solomon. He's written Ecclesiastes. He's gone through. He's seen the world for all its worldly wisdom. He's seen, and we've basically kind of done the same. We've kind of looked at the modern philosophies of our age. People like Oscar Wilde, who basically said life is all about pleasure. It's about hedonism, giving yourself to pleasure. It's the highest good. Albert Camus, who believed that there was ultimately no real purpose in life anyway. Just live life as it is. Don't worry about it. Karl Marx, who basically saw life just as a struggle between the haves and the have-nots. Alienation, alienating yourselves from your work and from your personhood. And we've looked at all of these, and we hopefully have come to the same conclusion that Solomon has come to, and that they are all these philosophies of the world that is under the sun, they are worthless. So why is it that we are making a practice of studying the world to be like the world? It's exhausting. In our study of Ecclesiastes, we've seen that he has exhausted himself. It is vain to do it. It amounts to nothing. Of making many books, he says, there is no end. And much study is a weariness of the flesh. Giving your time over to the study of this world's ways, its wisdoms, its words is wearisome. He's not decrying learning. We ought to learn. We need to know our math. We need to know our science. We need to know our history. Absolutely we do. He's not decrying learning in and of itself, but what he is saying is that spending your time on the study of our culture, ultimately so that we can be like them, is tiring. In other words, giving your best years to the living of this world, living unto this world, living by what this world considers to be wise, is going to tear you down. And it's going to leave you empty and exhausted. Physically, mentally, and emotionally. The world's wisdom promises so much, and it delivers nothing. Paul wrote, if you want to go with me to Colossians chapter 2. Starting at verse 20, he says, if with Christ you died to the elemental spirits, could be translated principles of the world. Why, as if you were still alive in the world, do you submit to regulations? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch, referring to the things that all perish as they are used according to human precepts and teachings. These have indeed an appearance of wisdom in promoting self-made religion and asceticism and severity to the body, but they are of no value in stopping the indulgence of the flesh. Now, certainly he's talking more about the ways of Judaism, but he does talk about the world. Why is it that we are so enthralled with the wisdom of the world that we will ignore the wisdom of God? Because they sound good. Because we think that they're going to get us where we want to be. They're going to strengthen us as we want to be strong. And Paul says, along with Solomon, who yes and amen to this, it gives you nothing and it takes you nowhere. If the philosophies under the sun are worthless and exhausting, then there's only one place to look, and that's above the sun. And so we go back to Ecclesiastes 12. The last two verses. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. And so at the end of the day, after every philosophy had been studied and lived, Solomon ultimately came to that conclusion that life is about fearing God and keeping his commandments. There's nothing left to be said. Nothing left to be studied. Culture doesn't need your study. That's what we were made for. Anything less than that, anything that the world says, if we are aspiring to what the world says we were made for, if we are aspiring to the purposes and the meaning that this world tells us that we ought to have, then we are aspiring to that which is much less than what God has made us for. You were made for more. Much like, again, the Westminster Divines said, to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. That's what we were made for. God is worthy of our fear and our praise. We are to look on him like Lucy learned to look at Aslan through Mr. Beaver in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. When she asks him, is Aslan, the lion, is he safe? Mr. Beaver responded with, safe? Who said anything about being safe? Of course he isn't safe. But he's good. He's the king, I tell you. Lions aren't safe toward their enemies. But have you ever seen a lion towards its own cubs? Playful, compassionate, protecting. So we were made for our Creator. And so we fear him. We do as he commands, not as the world advises. That's what we were made for. In our brokenness and our sin and our weary hearts and our wandering hearts, we have forgotten our purpose in life. That we were made for more than existing. Made for more than just mere pleasures, more than just work. We were made to glorify our Creator. And so young people, you have the opportunity to spend the rest of your days drifting along with this world, or to go ahead, surrender yourself now, and submit to your Creator. It's one of the two. To drift along with the world, or to give yourself, as Paul would say, as a living sacrifice to our God. Not being conformed to the world, but being transformed by the renewing of our mind. But understand that there's no giving your life as a living sacrifice. Again, without Christ first having given his life as a true sacrifice on behalf of you. It is by his willing sacrifice of his own life that we face God not as enemies of a great and majestic King, but as children to whom he is compassionate and protective. And you do not live this kind of life, one that is a living sacrifice unto God, without the indwelling power of the Holy Spirit. Because he is the one at work in you. So as we finish up the book of Ecclesiastes, we end as Solomon did, understanding that we were made for more, that giving leftovers to God is absolutely wasteful, and giving your best to the world is absolutely exhausting. But living this life as a living sacrifice, living this life in fear and awe and praise and glory of God, that's a life that is well lived. It's the only way to find the true purpose and rest that you've been looking for. Again, that's not to say that everything is going to go well, but it is to say that our good King is always with us. So while most of this sermon has been geared toward the young people, I want to assure you, as older adults, that maybe you don't have the time or the energy or the strength that you once had in your youth, but you still have so much to offer our great King. It's never too late, even if you feel too limited. So ask God, whether you're young or whether you're old, ask God what he would have you do, and get busy doing it.